The Green Bay Packers are 2-2. They have some problems. How can they fix them? Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love. That'll do it.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. The Green Bay Packers are not a perfect team in 2024. But when I think about how they can overcome some of their flaws, and by the way, every team is flawed, I think about two things: Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. We'll get to that in a second. Lily Zhao on the show today. Thank you so much for being here. And today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Was the performance against the Vikings encouraging or discouraging? I think reasonable people can disagree. One bad half, one good half. And anyone who says, oh, the Vikings were in prevent the whole time, they don't know football. That's just not a thing that happened. It's not. Didn't happen. But when I look at the issues that the pass rush has, for example, how do you fix that? Well, I mean, we can get into some of the nuanced conversations about pass rush plan and how they're being deployed and the opportunities that they're being afforded and all those things. But ultimately, my answer is Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. The Packers are currently leading the league in explosive plays, but they're bottom 5 in success rate. That means play to play, down to down. They are not getting in good plays consistently. What's the problem? How can they fix it? Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love. Oh, Christian Watson, he's hurt. It turns out not as hurt as maybe it looked initially in the awkward contorting that his body did. We thought high ankle sprain early on. It's apparently a mild high ankle sprain, which is, I don't know, that's one of those tough things where it's like, it's the least worst version of a troubling injury, but it's like a medium troubling injury. Like it's not an Achilles, it's not an ACL, it's not a torn quad or something like that. But a high ankle sprain, like that could be 4 weeks, it could be 8 weeks, but it's an okay high ankle sprain. How do they make up for that? Well, Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur. The offensive line, there's some question marks. Jordan Morgan not able to make an impact so far. Josh Myers playing decent football. Rasheed Walker still giving up too many pressures. Zach Tom's been awesome. Elton Jenkins been solid. Sean Ryan's been solid. Is this going to be enough? Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur. That's my answer. That's my answer. And the Matt LaFleur part, to me at least, feels obvious. We've seen what Matt LaFleur has done over the course of his NFL career. And I'm not just talking about in Green Bay. I'm talking about going back to his days in Washington, in Atlanta, in LA, in Tennessee. He has consistently and regularly gotten the best version of his quarterbacks in every offense where he has been on the coaching staff. Understanding that, look, in Washington, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay are on that staff. In Atlanta, Kyle Shanahan is the offensive coordinator. In LA, Sean McVay is the head coach. But he got the best season in Marcus Mariota's career. He got the best version of Aaron Rodgers since his absolute peak prime in 2011 in the 2020 season. And in very strange circumstances with all the first and second year players and unprecedented youth on this Packers team in 2023, Matt LaFleur got optimal play out of Jordan Love. He's a really good coach. And for some of the question marks that are going to linger, and I understand the question marks lingering with Jordan Love, but look at what he did in week 1, the explosive plays, the second reaction plays, the I'm going to escape the pocket and make a throw plays. And then playing on a leg that Jordan Love said himself, after this may not be healthy the rest of the year, because he's not going to really get a chance to fully rest it. The bye week could give him 2 weeks of rest, and that will be nice. But is he going to be 100% healthy is a fallacy after like the 4th week of the season anyway. But for the Packers, Jordan Love's ability to make plays, to make something out of nothing was on display on Sunday. His ability, and he was late reading some coverages, getting to his spots, was off with some ball placement. And yet you look at some of the throws that he made in the 4th quarter. And again, I cannot stress this enough. The Vikings did not stop playing defense. Like, go back and watch the tape, please. It's simulated pressures. They brought a zero pressure, or they showed a zero pressure. I don't know if they brought a zero pressure on that interception. They brought Harrison Smith off the edge. They brought more than the Packers could block. And it was mostly a cover 2, cover 4 game anyway. That's who the Vikings are. They play 2-shell coverage behind all of the craziness that they do. They play a ton of palms and these coverages that are designed to make quarterbacks go insane. And Jordan Love set a career high in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Yes, interceptions tied a career high there too. But one of them, very clearly not his fault, off the hands of 2 receivers. One of them is essentially an arm punt. I look at the plays that he was making in the second half, some of the throws that he was making in the second half, some of the reads that he was making in the second half, and I go, that's the guy. That's the guy who can make plays that very few players in the NFL can make. I look at what Matt LaFleur is able to do. I wrote about this yesterday for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Jordan Love on the interception. Some people had a problem with the concept. It's a concept the Packers used multiple times in the game to attack cover 2, Tampa 2 specifically, and it worked in multiple other ways and variations. Matt LaFleur is really, really, really good at this. And I have faith that even against Brian Flores, that against Aaron Glenn in Detroit, against Vic Fangio in Philadelphia, against, can you name the defensive coordinator in San Francisco? It's not Vic Fangio anymore. It's not Robert Saleh anymore. It's not D'Amico Ryans. To paraphrase The Rock, it doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is in San Francisco because that defense is not the same as it used to be. It's Nick Sorensen. It doesn't matter that Nick Sorensen is the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. That's not the point. The point is, I'm not going to take Nick Sorensen and a 49ers defense, by the way, that is the big reason that they're 2-2. The big reason that they have the same record as the Packers is their defense is not as good as they thought it was going to be, certainly not as good as it had. They're accustomed to it being. I'm going to take Matt LaFleur against that guy every single time. We know what Matt LaFleur is capable of. And that puts them in a position to win any game they play. for whatever flaws that they have, and they do have flaws. They have Matt LaFleur. They have Jordan Love. And in any game they play, not in every game, because that's not how sports work, but in any game they play, that can be enough. Against the Rams, on Sunday, they play Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. They have to feel the same way. Their team is just not nearly as good. And that's the reality. So when that happens, you have to trust in your version, your Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, and say, well, it's them plus their team, and that's better than whatever LA has. And that's true. Lily Zhao joining us on the show next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You just pick more or less than at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your money. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas. If you might happen to be traveling. They invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On NFL. Why wouldn't you want $50? Go get $50. Get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. That is Locked On NFL. Get yourself some money. Some free money in this case. Well, it's $5. But $5 to get 50? Yeah, I'll take that. PrizePicks, run your game. Jordan Love made his return to a Green Bay Packers uniform and making her return to Locked On Packers for another edition of Zhao Doing, a somber edition because the Packers lost. Lily from Fox 6 in Milwaukee. Lily Zhao, how you doing?
Peter, I'm doing well outside of the thing we saw on Sunday. That was certainly a day. But outside of that, it's getting a little bit chillier here in Wisconsin. So fall officially in turn. So it's fun, but hope for a better result on Sunday. But I am doing well outside of all that. How you doing?
I'm good. At least you have the Brewers to pick you up. You get to cover a playoff team there. The Packers have a long way to go to make the playoffs here. Not that I don't think they can do it, but certainly they have to play better than they did in the first half. Okay, so we saw 2 different teams on Sunday. One team in the first half and one team in the second half. Which one is going to resonate with you longer as we head toward this next game with the Rams?
I would say the second half. The second half Packers team is one that we were accustomed to seeing outside of obviously those turnovers on back-to-back drives in the fourth quarter. Outside of those mistakes, it's like, you cut down on the penalties. They're able to score. The defense made some necessary stops as well. So that's the Packers team that I expected to see from the jump, but it wasn't, right? And they played perhaps their worst first quarter of football in a long time. 5 penalties, missed kick, interceptions. Christian Watson goes down. It was just a mess. And it was at home against a divisional opponent, which, the Vikings are riding high and deservedly so. I mean, they were really good on both sides of the football. Their kicker made their kick. And, that was kind of the difference in the game there, right? So when you looked at what we saw in that first quarter, that wasn't Green Bay Packers football. But unfortunately, they dug themselves in too deep of a hole to come out of. And that fourth quarter comeback, while it was great, they still had opportunities to win the game and they couldn't get it done, right? When you throw the interception and Tucker Kraft fumbles the football. So there were still chances there in the fourth quarter to actually come back from 28-0 down, but they couldn't get it done. But I do like the second half of this team. I think that's the version we're going to see hopefully moving forward.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people make the comparisons to 2023 when they start, kind of up and down and they have that week 4 loss to the Detroit Lions, a divisional game at home. Get embarrassed, and it got uglier from there, right? Like it didn't get any better in the short term. I think the difference for me, Lily, and we talked about this on the show yesterday, is we've seen that team, this team, be better, be a lot better than the team that we saw in the first half. Against the Lions, you kind of had to go, well, we think they can be better, but now we know they can be better. It just feels like they're starting from a different place. And maybe a second half with a big lead, you cut into that, you'd say, okay, you're just coping. Like, you don't know. That's just, silliness. It doesn't feel that way to me this time.
You're right. And what I think is a little bit disappointing is when you have a majority of the offense come back. The offensive line is shuffled around, of course, but you have a majority of that offense come back. Obviously, Jordan Love is coming back. He's not 100% from that sprained MCL. So credit Brian Flores and his defense for getting after him and putting pressure on him. But outside of that, though, if you take this Vikings game out, they've kind of had sloppy games, lots of penalties and where they shoot themselves in the foot. And you look at other teams, I'll just say in the division, like the Lions, right? They come out, they play like they're supposed to play. They're a complete team and they show it. But the Packers can be too, but it just seems like they need a couple games under their belt before it realizes like, oh, we're still a really good team. Let's just play 4 quarters of good football outside of let's have one bad quarter and ramp it up at the end and then we're good, right? We've seen what this team can do. It's a carryover from last season. The offense is explosive. The defense has playmakers, but they just haven't had a clean game yet from all sides. And there's the penalties are still an issue a month into the season. Outside of this game where they turned the ball over like crazy, that was a strength of this team. They held onto the football, and then the defense just looked a little bit lost in that first quarter as well. So it wasn't their brand of football, but we know what they can be. But the question is, can they finally put together just 4 good quarters of football and dominate an opponent? We shall see. But that's what I want to see from this team moving forward.
Yeah, the difference is, with 2023, we didn't know what they were. We didn't know what they were capable of. And so it does make it more disappointing, to your point, where we thought they were going to come in more fully formed than they were last year, because last year we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know like that they this quickly could be this good. And so the fact that now they're not, you're kind of going, why not exactly? Although let me push back a little bit on the Lions thing. I didn't think the Lions looked like the Lions until Monday night. So I thought that their offense, they were still trying to figure some things out there, force feeding Jameson Williams a little bit. So, everyone's they're going through these early season process. I haven't thought the Houston Texans have looked particularly good through 4 games. So these teams that we thought were going to be awesome, have not quite been awesome. 49ers are 2-2, just like the Green Bay Packers. So as we try and move forward here, Jordan Love, he's back. How did you think he looked against a Vikings team that we talked about it coming in? It was going to be really hard for him to come back and look sharp right away, and he wasn't.
He wasn't. And when you looked at, obviously, wasn't getting a lot of, hadn't played a real quote unquote football game since week 1. Didn't really have a lot of preseason reps. And when he's injured, he's doing as much as he can in rehab. So he hasn't just been out there. He hasn't been out there and, he's rehabbing. He's doing the best he can. But this was kind of the worst case scenario of a defense to face in your return. So he didn't look the best. Obviously put the ball very low for his receivers, which led to a bunch of challenge flags and, just made his guys' days a little bit tougher. You talk about the throw to Christian Watson, maybe if he hadn't have done that, maybe Watson would not have gotten injured on that play. So certainly the decision-making there, the throws there were a little bit low, but you looked at, he wasn't able to fully plant on that left leg. So he wasn't fully there yet. But outside of that, what we saw in the second half is what we're hopefully going to see from Jordan moving forward. And he mentioned it, he might not be fully 100% this season, because it's not like he could take 6 weeks off and not play and then fully come back 100% and hope this team is still in the playoff hunt. They need him. So he's going to have to deal with this knee injury, not be 100%, and hopefully get closer to that. But he didn't look the sharpest. He looked a little rusty to start the game. But I think as it went on, he kind of got under himself, and that was fun to watch.
Yeah, he said he felt good after the game. Matt LaFleur said on Monday that, he's a little bit sore, and that's to be expected. He also took some shots. Like, we can't get around that part. Football, you're going to come out of a game feeling a little bit sore. You hope that he just incrementally feels more comfortable, gets a little bit better. No, he's not going to be 100%, but by week 6, no one's 100%. That's just the nature of the game. And I don't know about you, Lily, I loved, for whatever misgivings you have about Brett Favre, such that you have them. Not everyone does. I get it. Walking into the game with the Favre jersey, to me, was about channeling the toughness that Brett Favre played with. that just like, I'm hurt, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to do everything. And we saw it in the game. He was either going to win that game or he was going to die trying, which was the way that Brett Favre played. And I have to say that, like, I understand, players and fans are going to want him to be maybe a little bit more conservative at times. I appreciated him saying, look, if I have to go win this game myself, I will. And he still made some throws in the second half where you go, yeah, like there aren't that many guys. Like that throw to Dontavian Wicks at the end, the last drive on the touchdown, the throw, I think 2 plays before the touchdown on the run, an absolute laser in between coverage along the sidelines. You're just like, oh yeah, like those are the plays that Jordan Love and like 3 other quarterbacks on planet Earth can make. I appreciated him having that understanding of history and channeling that a little bit. I thought that was a cool nod from Jordan Love.
Yeah, and I know I saw the comparisons on Twitter about, it was game reflected a Brett Favre game. And obviously we know it's been difficult with Favre and the stuff he's done off the field and all that stuff. But when you're talking about Brett Favre, the football player only, I think it was a nice way for Jordan kind of to rep him, especially after he came out and saying, he had Parkinson's disease. So, credit to Jordan for doing that and honoring kind of the history of the guys before him, right? Repping that number 4. But you're right. I mean, he really showed a lot of toughness on the field, and that's what you want out of a quarterback. You don't want your starting quarterback to say, oh, we're down 28-0. There's no hope left. I'm not going to fight for my guys. Jordan Love fought for his guys, and he made enough plays down the stretch where they had an opportunity to win, and that's what you want out of a starting quarterback. You want the chance to win. I think if they had maybe 5 more minutes in that game, there might be a different outcome, but there wasn't, right? So you live, you learn, but this is a guy who's tough and wants to lead his team, and that's fun to watch in Jordan Love.
Does Lily Zhao have any ideas of how to fix this pass rush? Get her on staff, by the way, if she does. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can get into this NFL season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's right. You go in there and you go, hey, Packers beating the Rams 28-0. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? And you can go, oh, let me bet on the Packers to cover this spread, or let me bet on an anytime touchdown, or let me bet on next touchdown. All of that in the app. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You don't have to win. First $5 bet, you get the $200. It's a beautiful thing. With FanDuel, Packers 3-point favorites on the road in LA. Interesting. Our friends at FanDuel obviously think the Packers much better than LA. I happen to agree. -3, it was 3.5. It's down to 3. Give yourself a chance over at FanDuel.com. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen. Now for your second listen, go check out Locked On NFL with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Yeah, I never bought into the criticism of Aaron Rodgers as someone who was not able to lead these comebacks because he was unwilling to throw interceptions. I never bought that criticism, but I saw a lot of people who did buy into that criticism praise Jordan Love. Despite the interceptions, because they're going, look, he's trying. Like, he was willing to just say, let's go down swinging. And I think that was what people appreciated about Brett Favre. It's what people appreciate about Jordan Love. Now you have to ride that lightning a little bit, right? Like, you can't veer too much into Jay Cutler land where you're willing to trust your arm a little too much. Like, Packer fans know what that's like from the other side. You like it when you're on the other side of that. You don't want to be on the Cutler side of the Cutler line. Never go full Cutler is, I guess, what I'm saying here.
Cutler. Yeah.
Defensively, it has not looked the way that we thought it could look so far, outside of Xavier McKinney being absolutely as good, if not better than we thought he could be coming into this season. Rashawn Gary has not impacted this season at all. Kenny Clark has not really been involved in what this defense is doing. How do they get there? How do they get back on track? Because we have seen Devontae Wyatt seemingly take a step forward. And there does seem to be some progress from Lucas Van Ness, and Kingsley Enagbare is giving them quality reps. And Preston Smith is turning back the clock a little bit it's like if their stars could just be stars, this would work out better. What can they do? How do they fix this? Or are we just worrying about nothing and this will be fine?
That's a good question. I feel like you're right. The stars haven't really performed, especially up front, right? They kind of held their own in the secondary outside of the injuries. Jair Alexander obviously didn't play against the Vikings. And you look at the pass rush as they were letting Sam Darnold slip through their fingers. This is Sam Darnold. I mean, credit to him. I mean, he got out of a lot of sticky situations in the backfield to gain some yards with his feet. It is a concern, right? I think we've heard Matt LaFleur talk now 2 weeks in a row. The pass rush wasn't up to par. That's a big concern. I think going into the season, you looked at who they had, like you mentioned, at Kenny Clark or Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith. And it's unfortunate that Devontae Wyatt goes down, had a walking boot coming out of the locker room. So how long will he be out for? I mean, he's ascending, but everybody else kind of hasn't really made an impact, like you said. So is it just more of you just put more guys on the line and you just rush 5 all the time? I'm not sure. But that will be a concern because if you're giving quarterbacks like Sam Darnold all day to throw, it's not going to end up well. Or if you're not pressuring in the right situations, you're going to give up a long third down, which is what we saw in their opening drive. Third and 14, pressure couldn't get home. And that's a big concern because where this defense thrives is up front. And if they can get to the quarterback up front, everything else just kind of falls into place. I'm not sure what they do with these guys. It's when you look moving forward, okay, the Rams, they can get after Matthew Stafford, right? That's going to be, I think, a big thing for them to prove themselves on Sunday is can we get after Matthew Stafford? I think if they can't do it again against this Rams offensive line, we might be kind of questioning how they make this work moving forward.
Are there changes to approach that you could see? Like Jeff Hafley was a guy who did blitz a lot on third down in the red zone at Boston College. We haven't really seen that version of him. Second half against Tennessee, we saw some of it, but again, we thought we'd see a lot of blitzes against Philadelphia, and he was content to play some coverages against Jalen Hurts. It seems like this is how he wants to play, but at a certain point, you have to make an adjustment, don't you?
I think so. And I think, again, that's why they brought in Jeff Hafley. It's his ability to adjust. And so I think for him, if he's saying, hey, I have 4 games under my belt and I've seen what does and what doesn't work for my defense, and what doesn't work so far is I'm not blitzing as much and the pressure just isn't getting home. When you're blitzing, it's getting home. Maybe that is a way for him to say, we have to really switch things up and just dial up the pressure, play after play if we need to, and see if that works. And I don't know, if a guy gets a sack and he gains some confidence, maybe that helps him as well. So I think why not adjust? It's not like the schedule is going to change. You know who's coming up every single week. Matthew Stafford, to his credit, certainly can get out of some sacks as well if need be, but he's not as mobile as Jalen Hurts. And so you have the ability to rattle a quarterback. Let's dial something up that's different this week. Let's see if it works. And if not, then you reassess. But I think something does need to change up front for that defense for sure.
Yeah, I'm actually excited about seeing Carl Brooks on the field. I think he's a player that showed interesting flashes last year. I'm surprised that he hasn't been a bigger part of their rotation this year. We'll see if that's something that can get them going a little bit here. We can't avoid it. Jaden Reed is someone we talked about last year. And in the middle of the year, probably about week 6, week 7, week 8, we were looking around going, is he the guy? Is he the best receiver on this team? And I think he's shown that. A lot of people were excited about Dontavian Wicks, and I was very excited about what Christian Watson could be in this offense. But maybe we just overthought all of that. Like maybe it's the guy who just set the Packers rookie receiving record, and we should have just thought that, like, hey, if he takes a little bit of a step forward, he's going to be really good. He's been really good, and I guess I didn't know he had this in him. How surprising is this level of ascendance for you with Jaden Reed?
I don't think I was surprised, but I do feel like we kind of just assumed it, so we weren't talking about it as much, if that makes any sense. I think he just shined so much in his rookie season that I expect him to kind of keep doing what he's doing, but he's doing it at an even better level this season. You look at the chemistry he had with Malik Willis, the chemistry he has with Jordan Love. He's always in the right spot at the right time. He's able to flash his speed, and he's able to just get open. And obviously that's a credit to Matt LaFleur and the game plan for making that happen. But what he's been able to do has been so impressive. Just his second year, Peter. I mean, this is a kid playing in his second year in the NFL, and he's playing like a veteran receiver. And he's a guy that, we talked about, okay, how do we replace somebody like a Randall Cobb in the slot? And what's the potential for Jaden Reed? We've seen that so far. This is just year 2. I don't think he's even unlocked what else he has out there on the field for this team. So he has been impressive to watch, but now with Christian Watson going down, you can lean on him a lot more, as well as Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton and company.
We saw this team, they weathered injuries last year constantly. It seemed like Christian Watson, hamstring injuries multiple times. He's out for extended periods of time. Dontavian Wicks missed some games. Jaden Reed missed a game or two, and they were able to shuffle this through. It's the benefit of having depth. It's the benefit of having Matt LaFleur. I think it helps tremendously to have Jordan Love back. So to your point, if the pass rush can show up against the Rams, I think this Packers team is set up to get a bounce back win, but we'll see. Either way, we will talk to you next week. Lily, appreciate the time as always. All right. Thanks to Lily for joining the show. Always great to talk with her. We've got the Locked On Rams crossover edition coming tomorrow, and then an interview coming on Friday. I will already be in LA on Friday when you get that interview. So a lot of fun still to be had here on Locked On Packers. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Go check us out on all the social medias, on the Instagrams, on the TikToks, on the YouTubes, Locked On Packers, so you can stay Locked On Packers.